Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Scott. How are you?
I'm good, man. Welcome to the walk-off, everybody listening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Big shout out to the people joining us on YouTube, too. It's kind of weird. You were just telling me about how we are getting lots of downloads audio-wise. We've doubled our listenership in the last month, but also our YouTube is, I don't want to
Exploded.
use the word, I don't want to use the word blowing up, but yeah, we're getting plenty of viewers there too, which is very appreciated. So thanks for joining us, everybody. I am right now not in Calgary. I've come to Edmonton to drop my cat off. My fiance and I are headed to Halifax here. I know all of this sounds incredibly irresponsible in a pandemic. I swear to God, there's more to it than you think. So when we moved to Calgary in October last year, we owned a house in Halifax. So we're just renting an apartment in Calgary, and we were renting out the house. And of course, why wouldn't mid-pandemic our renter move out? So we're headed there to isolate for 2 weeks and then try and put a new renter into the house. So the next few episodes, I'm going to be coming to you from the East Coast.
All right. Well, let's just hope you got better internet than Gregg Zaun.
I loved all the comments on the YouTube page of people roasting him for his internet connection.
Oh, it's amazing. Either roasting him for that or roasting him for something about Hazel Mae.
That's right. It was so and we are actually, I've got it on the list of things to talk about is Hazel Mae, because he was pretty harsh on her. He even figured she probably should have been fired for her couple of jumping the guns, I guess we'll call it. And again, we'll get more into that later.
Right.
But yeah, the comments on the YouTube feed were really funny because half of it was like bashing Hazel and half of it was like, get out of here, Gregg.
Yeah, Gregg, you're a cheater. What do you know? The other half was,
Yeah.
oh, we miss Gregg so much. It's so good to see Gregg.
Literally, it was like either an outpouring of, oh my God, it's so amazing to see Gregg again, or why is this guy around?
Yeah.
So
we're going to have to get a little more variety and maybe add someone like a Don Cherry. You know, he's not controversial at all.
Yeah, that's right. The walk-off. We're full of uncontroversial guests. We really are, except for Gregg.
Yeah, except for Gregg. Except for Gregg.
Okay. Tons of stuff going on in baseball, so let's get into it, my friend.
Do you want to talk about, let's start. Before you do, just mention who our guest is for today?
Yeah, absolutely. So thrilled to have talked with this guy about 3 weeks ago, Michael Krause. He was drafted by the Blue Jays in 2008, played in their system till 2014. He is a pro ball player and has been for well over a decade. We talked to him about the Mexican leagues he's played in. We talked to him about the pandemic year where he was one of very few independent ball players that managed to find a team in Chicago there, the Dogs. So we'll get into that. Honestly, the dude is awesome. Mm-hmm. Just a great guy. Baseball mind to chat to. Yeah. So that should come up in, my guess is 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But we'll have it in the show notes and you can skip ahead to that if you so choose. Okay. Let's get into it. Okay. Let's start with the Blue Jays. Honestly, man, what's really weird about this season is it honestly felt like we were in line for an amusement ride. You know, it's like, oh, we're waiting for the roller coaster. Why are the Padre fans the only ones getting on this ride? You know, like it felt very frustrating for a while. And now that we're at the front of the line, holy crap, man, what a roller coaster it's been. Like just last week, and this is the thing, right, is Monday, last episode, we were talking about the George Springer signing, and it feels like a million years ago. Mm-hmm. It even feels like a million years ago that they signed Marcus Semien, which is what we're going to get into right now. So the Blue Jays did make a big splash last Tuesday. They signed Marcus Semien, former Oakland Athletic free agent, to a 1-year, $18 million deal, and I can't tout this deal highly enough. I love it, man. I don't know how you feel.
I love it too. I know it's controversial and has split the fan base a bit, but I absolutely love it for so many reasons.
For so many reasons, and let's get into those reasons. Okay. Number one, let's start with the fact that it totally improves our defensive side of this infield. He's a shortstop. He's probably slightly above average fielding shortstop. Mm-hmm. They're moving him to second base. They were very upfront about the fact they were moving him to second base. I think it's why that he got such a big contract. $18 million is a lot. He probably is more of a $14 million guy, but the Jays, for a 1-year deal and to move him positions, gave him a little bit more money. I like how much this Blue Jays front office shows respect and confidence in Bo Bichette as our shortstop moving forward. A lot of people have said, hey, bring in Didi Gregorius, bring in these guys that would play shortstop and move Bo to second. He's 22 years old. I love that they've kind of given him this position. They're like, this is yours to lose. You're our guy. You're the guy we've brought up through our system, and we're not going to mess with that. I think that's a ton of respect towards a 22-year-old kid.
Let me stop you right there, because on the other hand of that, you've got Vladdy, who was the other, rising savior of the franchise that came up at the same time with Bo, right? So we get Semien goes to second, which moves Cavan Biggio over to third, which means Vladdy, thanks, but you're going back to first. So on the one hand, we've got respect for Bo, but on the other hand, Vladdy is like, no, that's not happening.
I don't know if it's the same thing though, because Vladdy, it's just more obvious that he's not a good fielder.
No, that's true. I'm not saying it's unwarranted, but it is like, Bo, we have faith in you at shortstop. Vladdy, we do not.
And it does say that a lot, because the truth is, I think we're going to see Vladdy at third base, but I think we're going to see him there 20 or 30 times in 2021. Like, I think they are going to play him there when it's, let's say, a lefty pitcher on the mound, and you're not going to see Rowdy Tellez in the lineup. There aren't a lot of left-handed bats in this Blue Jays lineup. So when it is a lefty pitcher, they're going to be able to front load all the righties out there. And then you'll be able to put Vladdy. Like, Biggio can play first. Biggio can play. We're going to get into Biggio too, but
yeah, we are.
Okay.
But the other thing with the Semien contract that I love is that it's 1 year.
Me too.
I think that works perfectly for us and what our franchise is on the cusp of.
Again, it shows confidence in our prospects. Jordan Groshans, Austin Martin, both of them project as third baseman. I know Austin Martin, everyone's hoping he's center fielder, but who knows? But those are two big-time prospects. Both of them are top 50 guys in the entire pipeline in the MLB. And both of them didn't have a minor league season last year, and expecting either of them to make the jump this year is absolutely ridiculous. And I love that they have enough confidence in these guys to make the next step over this year, that they only locked Marcus Semien up for 1 year. Because the truth is, there were lots of shortstop options out there. They could have got a guy for 2, 3, 4 years if they chose to. I mean, they were in on the Francisco Lindor trade.
Right.
They made a pitch for him. So there were options out there. I kind of like how all of this settled in the long run.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
I think it's a great signing. And then they also, starting pitching is really our other question mark. They did go out there and get Steven Matz out of the Mets system for Sean Reed-Foley, Yanzi Diaz, and another prospect. He was a lower level prospect. I forget his name now. Josh Winkowski. So,
all right. Well, after butchering his name, we won't be having
after
him
butchering
on the
his name. Good riddance. That's right.
You just blew it, Scott.
Yeah, but Matz is there were a few things behind this trade. They needed a 40-man roster spot for Marcus Semien, so they needed to clear some room there. So moving Sean Reed-Foley and Yanzi Diaz off that 40-man roster provided that spot. Steven Matz is a starting pitcher. He had a horrible year last year, above a 9 ERA, but they're hoping that they can turn him around. And he's going to be in that competition for that 5th spot in the rotation with Stripling and Anthony Kay and Julian Merriweather. And there's a huge laundry list of pitchers that are going to be competing for that final spot in the rotation. And I don't think the Blue Jays are finished with their starting pitching. I know after the George Springer signing, Mark Shapiro came out in the press conference and said that the Blue Jays had done the majority of their heavy lifting. And some Blue Jays fans took that as they're not going to bolster their starting rotation, but they did just spend $185 million. So I think saying that the heavy lifting is done goes without say here. Can they still throw a 2-year, $30 million contract Taijuan Walker's way, Jake Odorizzi's way? Yeah, and I think that's going to happen. I think they're waiting this out because now that's all that's left on the pitching market is the second tier. Obviously, Trevor Bauer's still out there. I think we're probably out on him, but who knows?
I think our arms are too exhausted from the heavy lifting.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. All that heavy lifting. It's too much to lift Bauer into the fold.
But that's fine. That's fine. As long as he doesn't end up in the AL East, it's still good.
Agreed. And I don't think he is.
Yeah,
I don't think the Yankees are going to. They're the only ones who could probably afford it. Yeah. The Red Sox are rebuilding. Yeah. The Rays just traded Blake Snell and Charlie Morton, so they're not even a thought of. And then there's the Orioles, which, until they're worth talking about, we'll pretend like they don't exist.
Sounds good.
Okay, one more Blue Jays thing here before we continue to move this show along. I do wish to talk about Cavan Biggio for a second. I know you're very high on him. You're a big fan, myself as well.
Yeah.
He's played around a full season at this point. Mm-hmm. I think he's at 165 games played. Listen, there's a real sentiment amongst Blue Jays fans online that Cavan Biggio isn't as good as people are touting him to be. There's a faction of the fan base, and I know you've probably seen it online too, Adam, now that we've joined some Blue Jays fan pages and stuff like that. There's people who just don't like him, and I can't really wrap my head around it. I am well aware of exit velocity and what a big deal it is. For those of you listening who aren't 100% sure, they're now radar gunning the ball off the bat, and exit velocity has become a big deal. Rowdy Tellez and Vladdy Guerrero hit the crap out of it. Right. Their exit velocity is like top 20 in the league.
Right.
Cavan Biggio, on the other hand, is on the bottom 20%, and a lot of people don't like that. That said, I don't understand the concern because all he has done is perform. I mean, on base percentage is fantastic. Incredibly smart base runner. He's 20 for 20 in stolen base attempts. He can adequately play first. He can adequately play second. He can play third. He can play all three outfield positions. Like, my God, that's insane, the versatility of this guy. I don't understand why you would consider trading a guy that you're paying so little. Mm-hmm. You've still got years on him before he's even arbitration eligible. Mm-hmm. He can play all over the field. Mm-hmm. And he's got that baseball acumen. Mm-hmm. Craig Biggio was his dad. Like, what are we talking about here? And, one thing he has done since becoming a Toronto Blue Jay?
What's that?
Improve.
That's true.
He has improved at every single turn. So this is the guy you wish to package? No, don't be crazy. Mm-hmm. And this is the thing too, is that yes, he's only hitting 260. He has 100 walks. Like, he has played the equivalent of one major league season, and he has 100 walks. Are you kidding me?
It's insane.
I don't know how I'm sure you're on the same page here.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I would consider letting him go on a trade is if it was, as a piece of getting something huge in return.
Exactly.
I mean,
you got to give up quality to get it, for sure.
Like a no-doubter ace, right? I don't mean just add a solid guy to the rotation. I mean,
a guy who's going to be
battling for the Cy Young.
Exactly.
Right.
If we get Luis Castillo out of the Reds, maybe
is the right word there. I'm still not
and I don't think he's unmovable, and I don't think he's a superstar. But every team needs those guys that's a spark plug, needs a guy that's an obvious leader. Mm-hmm. And you know what, man? For 26 years old, he is obviously the leader on that team, mm-hmm. which is another thing. Let's jump back to Marcus Semien for a second, because that is one thing that was highly touted with him, is his leadership ability and how well-liked he is in the clubhouse. Mm-hmm. When he left the A's, and I mean, always, if you're a well-liked teammate, when you go somewhere else, your ex-teammates are going to be like, great guy, we're mm-hmm. going to miss him.
Right.
But, man, the outpouring from the Athletics was a little bit intense. Like, there were guys who were truly upset that the A's didn't sign him.
Like, heartbroken.
Yeah. So I love seeing that, and especially if you look at what happened when the Jays brought in the leadership of Josh Donaldson in mm-hmm. 2015, and what a huge difference it made on mm-hmm. that team. Leadership is... You can't quantify the value of it. Mm-hmm. but it goes a long way. And I think with a young team like this, to have a guy who can come in and actually has been there, has done it, has put up the numbers, and can take some of these young guys by the proverbial hand and be like, this is how you be a big leaguer. This is how you win. This is how you play in the playoffs. And that's another thing with this ad. Going and getting him from the Athletics, they have constantly been in the postseason the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
I mean, the A's are always, they're the Rays of the West.
Yes. No, it's
so that's another
good.
exciting thing.
Like you said, the clubhouse experience and the leadership. One guy that we both harped on last year, I think I might have harped on him more than you did, but was Vladdy. Watching his body language after making some painful to watch errors, whether it was at first, on a throw that was at his head and it popped out of his glove, or throwing errors, and it was just all the time. And I'm excited to have some real veteran experience that
in the field
that'll be able
even more so. The on base mistakes Vladdy was making too. So hopefully when you get a guy like Springer, who is well known as a great base runner, get a guy like Semien, who's a well known clubhouse leader, that maybe little things like that. I think Vlad's just going to be, experience goes miles, right? I think he's going to just be a better player this year, just naturally.
He's been a prodigy since he was 10 years old or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
I think he just an abundance of confidence that was a little bit unwarranted, right? He just thought whatever I do is going to be turned into gold. And
he'd never been challenged.
He was challenged last year. We saw how that worked out. And I don't think there was anybody really on the team that could pull him aside and really get through to him. And, I
think, go ahead. Sorry.
Just now with a guy like Springer or Semien, Springer is a, 2017 World Series MVP.
Yeah.
If he pulls you aside and says, hey man, maybe don't leg that double into a triple, you're 260 pounds, just stay at 2, look at the bats behind you in the line. You got to listen to that. Right? But when Cavan Biggio says that, as much as he's got the baseball acumen, I don't think he's on a level above Vladdy in terms of egos in the dugout.
You're nailing it, dude. The truth is, when it comes to Biggio and Bichette, they came up the ranks with Vladdy. They played with him in Double-A. They won a championship with him in Double-A. They played with him in Triple-A. Yes, Cavan was the first one called up, but Vladdy and Bichette were right behind him. And if you look at the numbers, Vladdy was better than all of them in the minors. They couldn't touch Vladdy.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Now that they have surpassed him, maybe mentally at least in the majors, you still have that dynamic in your head, right? Where
he's
only
the
1
big
year
brother,
ago.
And who do you think you are telling me this? But no, so that's why I love it. I love seeing these veteran ads. I think it's going to be huge for his development, both in terms of the talking tos that he can be given now, and the fact that he's not one of our best hitters. He's one of our worst hitters. That's a big change from 2020 to 2021. Is he's no longer one of the bats in our lineup that is the scary ones.
He's lost 60 pounds since the season. I think this is going to be a very telling year for Vlad, and they are giving him every opportunity to succeed. All of the pressure is off of him, bringing in guys like Semien and Springer, where they're knocking Vladdy down in the order. Vladdy's not going to hit second anymore. He's not going to hit third. He's probably, if he struggles, hitting 6th or 7th. If he doesn't, then maybe we do have that number 2 hitter that we'd like.
Yeah.
But again, the pressure is off for Vlad, which is a great thing. And I think it's only going to help him. And I think that he is motivated. You don't lose 60 pounds without a little bit of motivation, right? And I think that he was a little bit embarrassed after that playoff run, that he felt like in this season, he kind of hurt the team. And I think that was a big deal to him, which is great. That's good. Yeah. It's too bad that you make the major leagues and you need to learn that lesson in the majors, that you should be in shape, but here we are.
So.
All right. I think we wrapped the Blue Jays talk. We've pretty much touched on everything we wish to, unless you had something else to add here, bud.
No, absolutely not. That's good.
Okay. then let me just turn my anger meter up here and let's talk about the MLB and the MLBPA and what's going on there. Just yesterday, the MLB floated a proposal where spring training would start March 22nd and the regular season would start April 28th with a postseason carrying over into November. They proposed a 154 game season with full pay, so 100% of those games. So they're not being paid for 162 games. They're being paid full price for 154. The season would be delayed a month. Offer includes expanded playoffs of 14 teams, so 2 less than last year, and a universal DH. The union is deliberating. They haven't come up with an answer yet, but everyone's saying they're going to turn it down.
Right.
This is such bullshit, man. Like, I see right. Listen, it's being framed as safety for the players. This is why they're going to delay it. Safety for the players. But and you know what? If you just were to look at this one piece of transaction between the MLB and MLBPA and think about the fact that the MLBPA is going to probably turn this down, almost 100% they're going to, you would kind of look at it like the players are in the wrong here. Why would they not just play a few less games and provide the best safety during a pandemic? But we both know that this has absolutely nothing to do with safety. This has absolutely nothing to do with the safety for the players. This has everything to do with pushing the expanded playoffs through, because once they succeed or secede the playoffs to them, how do you go back from that? Right? Like with this big CBA coming up in 2022, this so new collective bargaining agreement.
It expires after this season, correct?
After this season.
Okay.
Yes. And one thing to keep in mind, too, is that if there is not a deal, okay, so if the MLBPA does turn this down, there's still going to be baseball so long as the government authorities allow it, which they've done with every other sport. My God, the NBA is canceling games consistently here, so I don't think the U.S. government gives a shit. And in the absence of a deal, opening day would just be April 1st. I just think that it has been systematic over the last couple of years, the way the MLB has tried to position themselves as the good guy against the players and create this animosity from the fans towards the players, when the truth of the matter is it has nothing to do with what they're framing it to do about.
Of course not. It's a like you said, it's a battle of PR with an upcoming CBA ugly battle.
It's going to be so ugly.
The first time we had Gregg Zaun on the show, that was something that he talked about.
He said right away.
He was displeased that we even played 60 games last year. He said we should just shut it down and let's get to the negotiations, because we have bigger fish to fry than making a bullshit 60 game season happen. Which whether or not you agree with 60 games, does it count? Blah blah blah. I mean, he hit the nail on the head, and it hadn't even occurred to me that we were on the precipice of a very ugly CBA negotiation. And that looks like it's so frustrating. It's going to be the case. It looks like that.
It's 100% going to be the case. There is going to be, if there's baseball next year, count your lucky stars, because I can't see it happening. I mean, let's face it, man. It is February 1st, and the DH rule is still up in the air.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is wrong with the MLB? Why is Manfred doing this? And I mean, it's not just Manfred. Obviously, he's just the puppet behind the owners, and the owners have been just a huge... I mean, they lost a lot of money last year. I'm not going to act like they didn't take a hit. But the way they're framing it, and online, you see this too, because we're human. We can't help but try and relate to a certain side. Okay. So you see online in a lot of these Blue Jays groups, there's small business people that are like, I run a small business. I can't pay my employees if I can't pay myself. Like, how could players act like this? But that's not the case. And if you're a small business person, all the respect to you. And I hope things pick up as this like, I know how difficult it's been on you as a self-employed man.
Right.
I'm well aware of how difficult it's been. Okay. But we're not the MLB owners. You got to get that out of your head.
Yeah.
Okay. We are not billionaires running a business. This is not about health and safety for the players. So anyways, I think we've got our point across, but when the MLBPA rejects this, and they will, there's going to be a bunch of rhetoric about how it's ridiculous. They were offered full price on their full amount of pay.
Which, by the way, that's such a sneaky bullshit thing.
Oh, it's such a, it's all manipulation. Yeah. The whole thing is manipulation. It's just ridiculous that they're trying to create such a wedge between the fans and the players.
I mean, you and me are both parts, like you said, of those Toronto Blue Jays fan pages on Facebook and on Twitter and everything. I've seen the posts already of like, I don't usually, or I usually side with the players, but how could they possibly be so greedy as to turn this down? Like, it's a shortened season, but it's still, in capital letters, full pay.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's not.
It's like, full pay for the 154 games.
Yeah. So
plus another thing is that if you take a month off of the season, so you're starting April 28th, you're only adding 1 week at the end. That's the proposal. You're only getting rid of 8 games, so a week's worth of games pretty much. So think about how many doubleheaders these guys are going to need to play. They're going to be booking, like they're going to be literally scheduling doubleheaders. And even if they're at 7-inning games, which is what it looks like it's going to be, that's 14 innings of baseball in a day. And I know everyone's like, oh, we're going to cry for millionaires. But I hate to break it to you. This isn't about Mookie Bets. This isn't about Mike Trout. This isn't about George Springer. This is about Anthony Kay. This is about Mike Bolsinger. This is, this is about the guys who are making $500,000 and every little dime. And, they might only play 2-3 years. Their arm could be ruined forever. And, right there.
And let me just press pause on that too and add one more detail about.
Please.
$500,000. That's still a lot of money. Yes. But they also, and we talk about this with Michael Krause in our interview. They don't make like any money for 5 years until they make the major leagues.
Yes.
A lot of them are taking out loans. Maybe mom and dad are able to help them. Right? Like.
It's totally, and that's one thing we learned from Brant Stickle when we talked with him, Alberta boy, the Stettler Southpaw. Yep. He played in the Los Angeles Dodgers organization for a year. If it wasn't for his parents, he couldn't have done it, he said. Yeah. Okay. Michael Krause talked money with us, and he was literally telling us that the only reason some of these guys get through is that the bonus babies, they call them, so the high-ranking prospects, the guys who are drafted in the first, second, third round, they get bonus money when they sign. So these guys are playing A-ball or AA, and they're paying for everyone's meals. Yeah. They're helping guys out with rent. Like, it is insane that minor league ball has put the onus of getting by on parents, on fellow teammates. And then so when you finally get to the major leagues and you're making $500,000, you blow your arm out. You live in the U.S. where health is monetized. Yeah. What money are you even making?
Yeah, really. No, it's crazy. So, yeah. You're absolutely right, though. This isn't about the millionaires. This is about everyone else.
Yeah, this is about the 75% of the MLB players that aren't millionaires. Okay, well, I think I've ranted enough about that. I did wish to bring up the Nolan Arenado trade before we wrap this up. It is pretty impressive, man. I wouldn't even say impressive. It is pretty insane to think about how many generational talents have been traded in the last 12 months. It is mind-blowing. Maybe a little over 12 months, but Mookie Betts was moved.
Right.
Okay, Francisco Lindor, Nolan Arenado. These are literally the best players at their position in the entire MLB. These are guys that are Hall of Fame players. Francisco Lindor is 26 years old. Mookie Betts is 27. Nolan Arenado is 30. These guys all have half a decade to a full decade of good baseball left in them, and they are being traded. With all this attention on how valuable prospects are, right? You got to keep your prospects because you don't know what's going to come of them.
Right.
When you finally get that lottery ticket of a prospect that does turn out, because we can name a million that didn't. You finally get that Mookie Betts. You finally get that Francisco Lindor. And, of course, there's always excuses, and you move them. I can't wrap my head around it, man. And, like, Nolan Arenado, obviously, they didn't wish to trade him within the division because they probably could have got a lot more if they were to move him to, let's say, the Dodgers, which is a team that was knocking on their door the whole time. But they're like, no, we're not trading it to a divisional rival.
Right.
So he goes to St. Louis. They pay $50 million of his remaining $199 million salary over the next, I think he's on the books for 6 more years. The prospects they received, I mean, the deal's not fully announced yet, so we're not exactly sure who they're getting through. But he was traded for prospects. Prospects and money. This is literally the best third baseman in Major League Baseball, and he was traded for money.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell, man? And even Francisco Lindor, okay? Lindor is a guy who is, again, generational shortstop talent. We're going to see 3 like Lindor in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And he was traded like for money reasons again. And I know Cleveland's a small market. Of all of the teams that we're talking about, Cleveland is probably the most forgivable. I know Mookie Betts said he wouldn't sign a long-term contract with Boston because he was tired of being called the N-word from the crowd.
Fair enough.
Which is very fair to go to LA and get out of Boston. If you're a black player, I totally understand that. But at the same time, why was Boston not talking to him 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why are these guys? I just don't understand it, man. I don't know if you've got any insight on your side of a thought onto why this is acceptable.
It's not, and I think it just further illustrates the job that Atkins and Shapiro were doing with our young guys, and like the Semien deal with like right in the contract is like, we're gonna give you all this money, but you're gonna stay out of Bo's way. He is our shortstop, and I think that is part of it. Is 3-4 years from now, Bo Bichette could be a top 2, top 3 shortstop in the league. And if we fucking drive him into the dirt and take him for granted, he's going to want out because of course he will.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's the beautiful thing with this signing is when they gave Semien more money, they're like, you know what? Money is fine. You can't replace young talent. You can replace money. You look at Bo Bichette, and he's not arbitration eligible until I think it's 2025. If I'm off on that, by the way, again, we're the diehard show for the casual fans, so give me a break and stay casual. But even if it's 2024, he is 3 years away from arbitration eligibility, which means that he's locked in at his rookie contract, I guess is pretty much how it's summed up.
Right.
If I'm messing up the term there, forgive me. But he's making, I forget what it is, the league minimum, right?
That's how these young guys work. 7 figures.
Yeah, exactly. He's not making $1 million yet. So he's very, very cheap for the productivity that he's giving back.
Yeah.
When you become arbitration eligible, it means that you go back to the negotiation table and kind of look at players that are similar with the numbers that they're putting up, and then you renegotiate kind of from there. Even those guys, yes, they're going to make a lot more money, but it's not actually like free agency where you just like, back the truck up and put $150 million in George Springer's bank account, right? So the fact that they've kind of set this up with Semien so that they're not disrespecting Bichette, so that they're like, listen, we want you here long term. That's what that says. When you go out and get a free agent of the stature of Semien that is always been a shortstop and it is above average shortstop, to just give the position to Bo and be like, we're going to give this guy more money to play, move his position to second. It says a lot. And I think it's a great way of the Jays operating. And this is where you look at Boston and you're like, could you not have been doing stuff like that for Mookie Betts, right?
100%.
All right. Well, before we throw to Michael Krause here, I did wish to say the MLB finally did something right. They did hire Ken Griffey Jr. Woo, the kid. Yes. He's a senior advisor to Rob Manfred. And if there's anyone who needs advising, it's friggin' Rob Manfred. So good. Yeah. He's going to help with player development and the direction of the game. The kid could save baseball, people.
You know what? Ken Griffey, one of the few players that didn't use steroids in the 90s and early 2000s. And just imagine, if he did, he probably could have been a Hall of Famer.
Well, yeah.
Just kidding, of course.
For those of you who don't know, obviously he's Hall of Fame royalty.
All right. Well, good talking to you.
Absolutely. Should we give our YouTube spiel here?
Fine.
Okay, you can hear us on Apple, Spotify, Google, all the places you get your podcast. If you're not listening and you're just wish to check out our YouTube page, you can do that. That's the Walk Off Podcast. First thing that comes up now, baby.
Yeah.
Our algorithms are working for us.
Yes.
And if you kind of want to give the rundown on exactly how that works, Adam.
Go to YouTube, look up the Walk Off Podcast. There we are. We've got all the clips from recent episodes. We've got full conversations from all of our guests, including Michael Krause will be linked to in the end card at the end of this episode. Otherwise, roast us in the comments. Say hi. Yeah. Give us a like. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you all listening. Cheers.